I'm so excited for you guys to chime in today because we have Michelle Collier, who is a personal and professional development coach and a consultant with over 20 years of experience helping others learn, grow, and thrive. She began her career at a law firm in Washington, D.C., where she developed a passion for helping others through learning and development. She earned her master's degree in education and began teaching in alternative secondary education settings, where she was recognized for her leadership development and community building skills and accomplishments. She was recruited to open a private school division for a nonprofit where she eventually became the head of school and co-executive director. It is in these roles that Michelle embraced her affinity for helping others achieve their personal and professional goals with the love, support, and encouragement of an incredible network of clients, colleagues, family, and friends. Michelle founded Collier Connects LLC to continue helping others thrive. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. So let's dig into this a little bit. Can you tell everybody a little bit about you?
Sure. Yeah, obviously I am an educator at heart. That is kind of where I spent the majority of my career. But I, much like so many other women, just overdid it. I always felt like there was no room for failure. There was no room for breaks. And I gave more than I received oftentimes in my job. Always wanted to help others, but I did it at my own expense, as my family's expense. And really ended up, I think, putting myself in a situation, but also kind of having been put in a situation that it was impossible. It was an impossible situation, I think, and eventually kind of had to stop and do some real reflection and reassessment and see about realigning. And not only did that happen as far as like you could see in my work, but also it happened inside of me in my body. And so I made some major life changes, and that's what kind of led me to decide I needed to start my own company helping others thrive and stop making personal sacrifices for someone else's dream.
Hmm. That's really good because I feel like a lot of us at its very young ages are taught the belief or the understanding that we really need to give all of ourselves in order to get the recognition, to get the job, to get all the things. Would you say that maybe, even though you were in this role and you realize, wow, I'm like doing too much of myself and I'm really experiencing, some dis-ease in the body, would you say it's because of like who you thought you had to be in those roles?
For sure, 100%. I think that and it's interesting because, so I work with clients to try and help them, prevent them from getting to this point in their lives, right? But I work with clients, and over again, I am seeing patterns of which there is a serious lack of mentorship
Yeah.
available to people, especially when you get to the top, right? You get to the top and there's no one there to kind of help guide you through things.
Yeah.
And I was desperately seeking someone who was more experienced, and I would like reach out to people and be like, hey, do you think we can get coffee? But everyone was so stressed. Every woman I knew in a top leadership role, leading an organization, was super stressed and, would feel terribly because it took them 2 weeks to get back to me and that kind of thing. And I knew it because I was there too. Same thing. But I was seeking that, and it really wasn't, it didn't even occur to me to look for it in a professional way of like paying someone to help them. And yeah, and it was really kind of telling to me when I finally did reach out to, I had a formal mentor, excuse me. I had a formal mentor when I first started teaching, and that person was there for me so consistently. And even though I had not worked with him for, he hadn't been my mentor for like 20 years, when I finally was at that point where I was like, I can't take this anymore. I knew what I had to do, but like just having that conversation with him and being like, hey, can we talk? And like letting it all out and telling him all the things that have been happening, and to be able to have that person go, hey, those are totally unrealistic expectations. Like, it wasn't someone who was my family or friends or somebody who I thought like just didn't want to see me working super hard all the time, right? It didn't seem to be like, it didn't seem to be that person, you know. It was this person who was outside of that, who knew me professionally, also knew me personally and wanted to see me thrive, right. But like also was like, hey, that's not what you're supposed to do in this role, and you need to move on, and to just kind of validate that. But I didn't have that along the way. I didn't have, because there was, like I said, just you get to the top and there's not someone looking out for you and helping you, guide you, and saying your name in the rooms that you're not in and things like that.
But, you know, I think that that's such a common thing now. I mean, like, it doesn't matter what profession you're in. I feel like there's such competition. And now I do feel like women are really trying to redefine this and work on collaboration and partnerships and mentorships and all these things. But for them or organizations to have built-in mentors, built-in coaches, built-in confidants, built-in, you know, whatever, therapists, they don't have that, because I think that they really feel like it's an expense that isn't really going to increase their ROI. And so I think the conversation that you and I are having right now is like, listen, using these kind of services are going to increase your ROI, because it's going to actually mirror to you, you know, what kind of things you're going through. What is your expectation? What is your perception? Is it in alignment with what should actually be happening? Because I always say, like, to my clients, when you're in the eye of the storm, when you're dealing with something, it feels really big because you feel like that's where you're supposed to be. But it's really interesting to have somebody outside of it to look at things from a very realistic, non-judgmental, you know, point of view, and then mirror back to you exactly what you need.
I mean, you absolutely hit it 100%. I actually have obviously done a lot of research about it because, you know, working with these clients and seeing it, not only hearing, like with my own clients, they just don't have a mentor, right? They don't have that formalized mentorship. And then on top of that, you know, talking to other individuals in these companies that don't have it, and the individuals are like, they're screaming for it, right? They want it. They really, really do. And if anybody could like think back to when you were in school, right? And you had that one teacher who really took an interest in you or motivated you or inspired you in some way to just keep going. And like, even though you might not have done well in some other subject, for some reason when you were in that class, you were thriving, right? And it's that trusted adult, right? And so the idea that we don't need that as we get older, no, we still need someone to believe in us. We just still need someone to see in us what we can't see for ourselves, right? We need someone to coach us, to guide us, to get us there. And so it's really had me working on developing a formalized mentorship program to offer to companies, because I do see it. And I would argue that there is a huge return on investment if you can do it, because having to replace an employee can be extremely costly, right? And we're at that age where individuals are not staying at one organization until they retire. That's not what they do anymore. They jump from company to company. If you want to keep your talent, you're going to have to nourish them. You're going to have to invest in them. And not only that, but when you have mentors, when you actually train individuals to become better mentors, they actually now are training for a leadership pipeline. Because how many times have we encountered leaders who do not belong at the top? They're not leaders, right? They might be really great at whatever their technical field is, but that does not make them a leader. Mentorship can help guide them towards that.
That's so good. And, you know, I really feel like that's the key, is like, you know, we believe that people that are at the top are considered the leaders, but they may also just be there because of longevity, right? And they may not also be great teachers, right? And I believe to be a leader, you have to teach. You have to be able to have that availability, that capacity, and that sort of thing. So I think that's a really great statement. So fast forward then a little bit for me of, you know, what sort of things were going on once you started to realize like there's that misalignment happening.
Sure. So So I had taken on the role of head of school, and which was amazing and it was wonderful. But it was a smaller division of a larger performing arts nonprofit. So kind of think of me as like I was in charge of the daytime programming kind of thing. But the bigger division was the after school programming, because that was what the overall nonprofit had kind of started off at. And it actually started off as a for-profit, and it converted to nonprofit when the school division that I was running had been added. So I was doing that. And so then I had a counterpart who was in charge of the after school programming, right? So I was the private school programming, she was after school programming. And then we had an executive director who was the founder. And she was kind of on that, that team, right? With operations and all that other stuff. Yep. So in December of 2019, the board asked me, the founder decided to step down and it was going to just be on the board. And so the board came to me and my counterpart and said, hey guys, will you split the co-executive director role, but keep your own roles?
Oh, just take another job.
So we were absolutely team players. We were both like, yeah, we can do it and we'll do it well and we get along so well and we're going to crush this, right? Because we couldn't say no, right? And so or at least we felt like we couldn't. And to be fair, I'm sure that we also gave the impression that like, no, we want to do this, right? And, in nonprofits, you're so used to being like, yeah, I got to wear 12 different hats. That's okay.
Yeah.
Because we wanted the organization to thrive. Those kids, there were so many kids that depended on us. And so, of course, we were like, yes, we're going to do it. So January 2020, we took over as co-executive directors. And then March of 2020 hit. And it was not a great time to be in charge of any organization, but especially not a nonprofit, and especially not a nonprofit that was for the performing arts and education. Wow. So, we did a great job pivoting, but we never stopped working. And it was, 6 a.m., checking your phone, getting up, starting to work. She and I distinctly remember on multiple occasions would be up till midnight, like reworking things, writing new policy, things like that. And then as we were like, okay, it's ready, we would get an email from the health department changing everything. And we'd be like, oh my gosh, we have to do it again, and it was just exhausting. But we had amazing teams who were, ready to work hard with us. They understood the mission. They absolutely didn't want the ship to sink either. And I'm really proud to say that although there were some massive personal sacrifices, that ship is still sailing. And we did not have to let go of one faculty or staff member the whole time. So it was really a great way to build community as far as, that was concerned, but there was a lot of sacrifice. So by June of 2021, I found out that I had breast cancer, and I am good now. I am almost 5 years clear, I guess I would say in the fall is technically 5 years. But and when I got that news, I was just, I was like, I don't have time for this. Right. Wow. It was kind of like, okay. And you just kind of sit in the meeting and I'm like in a meeting back to back, okay, you go to this doctor and this doctor and this doctor and this doctor, and things started to move very quickly. And I didn't really take a lot of time to reflect and do research and things. I was just like, okay, just get rid of it. Let's go. Let's move on. And so I remember I found out the day before graduation. We had a graduation ceremony, and then there was graduation. And I remember kind of circling in my head like, oh my gosh, I have cancer, and these kids are going to freak out, and the parents are going to freak out, and they're going to think one more thing. There was COVID. Now was what's going to happen to the school? Because at that point, I felt like I had to be everything to everyone, which I clearly did not need to be. But no, again, there was no one telling me I didn't have to be. And so I was so stressed about how was I going to communicate this to my to the school, to the parents, to the faculty, to the staff, without causing panic, right? Like, how was I gonna just make sure that everybody understood? Just, so I had to draft a message about my own personal health because I didn't want rumors out there. I needed to get ahead of it. I was so worried about that. I had a double mastectomy. A week later, I was at a work event. I remember ordering special button-up. I didn't have button-up shirts. And I needed a larger button-up shirt so that I could hide the tubes draining out of my body while I was at this work event. Again, no one told me I had to go, but no one also was like, there was no one else in a role similar to mine saying to me, this is not what you have to do at this level, right? So I showed up, and I remember that and thinking, at the time that was just what you do, and people just had to see I was okay. Everybody had to see I was okay, and that this is a good thing, and all the other things, and like put the positive spin on it, which I do believe because I know now where my life is. But what also another thing that happened during this time was that when I did send that message, I got a phone call about an hour after that from a parent. And she was a very nice person. We were friendly. And she called me and said, I had to call you immediately. I got your message. I just got the same diagnosis. And it was crazy. She was only a few years older than me. And so we really, really bonded over that. And, that next year and a half, 2 years, we spent a lot of time, talking to each other, being able to kind of say the things that we couldn't say to other people, right? But I remember thinking I couldn't let this be something that other people would see me as weak, right? And it wasn't necessarily like, saying, I don't know, when I say it, it sounds not exactly what I mean. But what I mean is like, I didn't want my kids or my husband or other people people to think that this was that they had to not depend on me, right? That I wasn't there for them. And so I started walking. Just little walks, and man, was it hard at first. Just to walk the little hills in my neighborhood, right? And when that happens to you, if you're very aware of your body and you kind of think like, oh my God, why is it so hard to just walk, right? How is this so hard? And that's when on these walks, that's when I would process, and I would cry so that no one else saw me cry. And that's when it would happen. I would cry and cry and cry. And then, I'd come home and I was fine and back to everything. And that kind of proceeded, and it went like that. And then we found out that they hadn't gotten all the cancer cells, and then I had to go back and have another, surgery. And so they did that. And, about a month after that, I got a bad infection, and my surgeon, he called me and was like, hey, I got your images. You've got to meet me at the ER. And I was like, okay. But like, how long am I going to be there? And he was like, at the ER, you're going to be admitted. I'm just going to meet you there because I want to help you accelerate the process. I was like, so I should bring my laptop then, right? That was the level of craziness. And I would love to say that was the last time I did that. I was in the hospital for like a week after that. I was taking meetings from my hospital bed. I would throw a top on so people didn't know I was in the hospital. And that was like not the last time, because I ended up having to have so many more surgeries after that. And they would be stealing the phone from me at the last minute to go in surgery, and then I'd ask for it right back at the end of the surgery. It was just a level of craziness. I always think, like, if you ever saw that episode of Friends where like they do an alternate universe and Phoebe is smoking like crazy, and she's like a crazy person who's all about work. I was like, looking back, I'm like, oh my God, that was me in that moment, minus the smoking. But like, I was this crazy person who didn't know how to turn it off. So lots of little things happened along the way, and I started to, I'm in that sandwich generation. So my own parents were kind of, their health was kind of starting to fail as well. Lost some friends, unfortunately, for different reasons. And I just kept hearing that little voice in my head that was like, this is not okay. This is not okay. And then when I finally got the all clear from my surgeon, he was like, I'll see you in a year. Just the waterworks started. And I just couldn't turn it off. I was like, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm crying. He's like, it's a lot. I was like, no, I don't know why. And I called my best friend. She was like, you just spent the last year and a half more worried about how your cancer was affecting everyone else.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, you're not wrong. And I remember then after that, it was pretty much like, I just kept seeing all of it was like, I think I'm done. I think I'm done. And then my friend, who I had told you about, who we had bonded over the cancer diagnosis, hers came back. And that was probably the last straw, where I was just like, I'm done. Mm-hmm. I am done. This is not how I want to spend my life. So I submitted resignation and took a lot of time off and did a lot of walking and reconnecting. And yeah.
I mean, there is a lot to unpack there.
No.
First of all, you are amazing. And I don't know if you know that, but you are amazing.
Oh, that's really kind of you to say. Thank you.
Like, it really is actually, it's insane to me because it shows the level of dedication and loyalty that you have to the people around you, that you actually are selfless, and going through that and just making sure that, listen, these kids, they're going to be affected, going through that, and like, I just don't want anything to be disrupted, and going through that and saying, they've been through enough, we don't want them to go through anything else, and going through that and still like having to wear all these masks and to just, I'm not going to say pretend you were okay, but to some degree you were, like, meaning like, I don't have time for this. I just got to keep going. And, it's interesting because with German New Medicine, one of the things they talk about with breast cancer is that it's usually some sort of a conflict in the home. And so one of the questions that I was thinking is like, did you live on campus like some schools do, or is that part of your home?
Yeah, so no, definitely didn't live on campus, but practically. I mean, my kids were doing some of the after-school programming. Because it was a performing arts organization, there were lots of events on the weekends, performances on the weekends. So, yeah, it became everything. It pretty much was home. We were there more often than not. And it did create, it created a lot of conflict at home. Yeah. I will say my husband and I were not in the best place. He very much saw me giving the best of me outside of our home. Of course, yeah. And not really reserving it for home.
Yeah, and that's where it kind of becomes interesting to me, because like a lot of the times, especially as high achieving women, like especially if there is a financial obligation that is tied to what we're doing, which for all of us it is. But it was like, how do you press pause on something like that at such a time where you need the resources, you need all those things. So it's like that hamster wheel, like you just got to keep producing that output at the same time. You're like, but I need to stop, but I can't stop, And so it's really interesting to just see the two parallels showing up, but at the same time, you're like navigating both sides, which is insane to me. I mean, and when I say insane, I don't mean like it's insane, but what I mean is the level of your commitment to what you do is just so profound.
Well, I think that's kind of at the root of, I think, for so many women, right? Isn't it insane?
Yeah.
The level of commitment that we are required, or we think we're required to give to everything. Yeah. I mean, it's not just about work. It's also motherhood. It's also friendship. It's also for our spouse, all of these things. Like, don't we think we're supposed to give all of this? And we have this impression, and it's like, Shonda Rhimes in her book, A Year of Yes, right? I love that one, right? So good, right? And how she talks about how like when people are asking her, well, how do you do it all? She's like, I don't. Like, if you see me succeeding in one area of my life, I'm probably failing in another. And it was like so wonderful to hear someone at that level saying it, just saying it right there and be like, no, obviously, right? And so help. You need help. That's what we need. And that's really kind of being able to kind of recognize and say you need help is huge. And it's a struggle for women.
Yeah, and to know that if you need help, it does not equate to you being weak. And if you need help, it doesn't mean that you're not successful. It doesn't mean that you're not capable. It doesn't mean that you're not able. All those things, it actually just means like you need support. Just like in any organization, there is a president, a vice president, a director, a CFO, like all the things, because it's a structure that needs support. Right? So in our family lives, in our business life, it is a structure that needs support. You have to outsource. We are not people that have everything in one thing. That's why, every department has a head, like every part of everything has multiple facets to it. So where did we learn the narrative? And then, so I'll ask you, Michelle, like, where did you learn the narrative that you had to be everything to everyone, and that meant that you were doing a good job?
I mean, I hate to say it, but like my mom did everything, and she didn't complain. Yep. And that's that generation, right? And so you kind of start to feel like, and she wasn't running a large organization, but she was an entrepreneur. She had her own company because she decided that she wanted to stay home and take care of other children because that was the way that she was going to be able to take care of her children in a way that she felt they should deserve to be taken care of, right? But like, my mom was always the one cooking, cleaning, doing all, like, taking care of all the kids' stuff, right? She was the one making sure we did our homework. She was the one, like, it was always her. And my dad, was very present, but like, he was working all of the time because we were in that financial position where, he had to take the overtime whenever he could get it for us, right? And so my mom was the one. And she's of this generation where, they made huge sacrifices so that we could attain these positions. My parents, not ever once did I ever get told I could not do something because I was a girl. Not ever. My parents absolutely were like, oh, you're going to be president of the United States. Oh, you're going to go to Harvard. Oh, you're going to do this. Like, they constantly were like, you are going to achieve. That never made me think that I wouldn't. And as much as I love that support and, the pushing of like, you are smart, you can capable, you can do all these things, right? I think that obviously that puts a lot of pressure from the start on you. And my mom is from Ecuador, so this is, coming to this country was a huge sacrifice for her as well. And so, you also have that added pressure of like, oh, this is not what my mom sacrificed. I got to be somebody. I got to do something with my life,
I feel like it's really interesting because when we look at like our parents and everything that they've had to go through, and sometimes we carry the same narrative or that we've been given from modeling, like watching their behavior. But it's like we're comparing apples to oranges, right? Like the way that, I don't know how many children you have, but I have 4. My mom had 2 kids, and she worked full time. But at the same time, my dad had like 2 jobs, right? But they didn't have all the demands that we have now. The cost of living has gone up. Like, there's so many different factors, but yet we're still holding this belief system that it doesn't even fit with today. So, it's time that we really do change the narrative. And then the other thing is, for me, I look at the way that I always called myself an overachiever. I mean, the more accolades I could get, the better. I have many degrees because of that, and in my mind, it was always like, well, I just need to get this so that I will be appreciated. My parents, my dad, I had to get like 100% on a test. Otherwise, it was, well, where's the other 4%? Where's the other 5%? It was never enough. And so at a very young age, that became how I was seen. And so one of the things that I hope with this podcast is that people are starting to recognize, you talked about patterns, like we are replicating old patterns that do not have to be right now. And so tell me a little bit about how you work on, disrupting some of the patterns that you have been in the past, moving forward with your business that you have now. How do you work on like stopping those patterns?
Yeah, first of all, I had, the support of my husband's support of like, yes, step back. This is unrealistic. You can't do this. And kind of being like, all right, yes, you can take some time to reflect. Mm-hmm. And what I did was spent a lot of time reconnecting with who I am. Mm-hmm. I forgot because I was drowning, right? Yeah. I was drowning. And so everything I was trying to do was just to come up for air. It was about surviving, not thriving, right? And so when I started going on these walks, I did obviously during treatment and stuff, but like afterwards, unfortunately my friend passed, and and her husband and I actually became friends walking. We started going for walks too. I was like, hey, do you want to go for a walk? And we would like talk through a lot of stuff. And then we had another friend who would come and we'd talk through stuff. And then his daughter would sometimes come. And then the one friend's spouse would come. And then I started walking with other friends too. And really just using that like time to collaborate and connect with others and connect with nature and realize you're part of something else, all that other stuff. It was so good for me too, because something I didn't realize until like I was completely just spread so thin with the cancer and the COVID and the running the organizations and trying to be a mom and a spouse and a friend and a sister and, a child and all the other things, was that I figured out that I am an adult woman with ADHD. And so that became clear too. And so getting out there and exercising and being a part of nature is really good to quiet that ADHD brain and kind of settle things. And so it was really impactful for me. But the other thing I really connected with was I reconnected with music, such a big part of my life. So listening to music, walking, really helping me process a lot of things. And then reconnecting with learning was the hugest part. And I keep looking this way because I have this bookshelf like filled with so many books. But the biggest thing, and it completely changed my life, was I remember going to the library and being like, I need a library card because like this is, I got to get back to reading. Yeah. And they were like, I was like, I just wish that you guys had audiobooks that I could borrow. And they're like, what do you mean we do? And I was like, wait, what? And she's just like, they're like, yeah, there's this app. It's called Libby. And I was like, wait, I can download and borrow the download and then return it. They're like, yeah. I was like, wow.
I just learned about that recently.
Completely changed my life. Because that's how I learned best as far as like with it, and it still lights up the same parts of the brain for reading. I'm still learning, but as an ADHDer, it is very hard for me to listen to things at the regular pace. So I love that you can speed it up because it keeps my brain engaged. Yeah. And then I could do it with like care tasks that were really challenging for me always. And so I spent so much time learning about who I am, learning about organizational development, just professional development, leadership stuff, things.
Hold on a second. We have technical difficulty.
Oh my goodness.
My husband.
Do you think it's me?
Okay. No.
Hold on. Sorry. That's okay.
Wow. He's like, sorry. Okay, so let's go back. You talked a little bit about, let's go back to the ADHD and how your brain lights up.
Yeah, so these books that I would be listening to, I started off with podcasts, right? But then when I found out that like, oh my God, I can listen to audiobooks for free, I started listening to all these books and they were amazing. And it was professional development stuff. It was like organizational psychology, just, personal growth, but leadership skills, teams, cultures. And I started to realize, like, I know so much more than I thought. Like, how you were talking about, like, that, how we feel like as women, we've got to have all the accolades, right? We got to have this, we got to have that. Like, when I became a coach, right, I was like, oh, I think I need a certification. It's not required.
Yeah. But that's what they're training us to believe.
Right. Yeah. And so I went and got a certification because I was like, I have to. Yeah. I feel like I do. And granted, it was helpful in that, like, it talked through a lot of, like, kind of business sides of things and linked me to some resources that I wouldn't have otherwise, I think, discovered. But otherwise, I was like, yeah, I know this, right? And it's the same thing, but it was, like, so reaffirming. Yeah. But at the same time, it was also really great to learn all the things that I don't know. And I will say one thing on a personal note that I was able to. So I am not a particularly religious person, but that book, The Five Love Languages, I had, like, skimmed it before, but I actually really, like, listened to it, and then I reread it and things like that. It absolutely put me in a better space, not just in my marriage, but it also helped me to better understand other people, my relationships with others, including my relationship with my own mother, right? Like, my mom is acts of service. There is, like, I know it. She's an acts of service person, but I am words of affirmation, right? And so it was like, oh my God, my mom is constantly trying to show me she loves me in this way, and I'm always wanting it in this way, and that kind of thing. And it was just so interesting and so revealing, and books like that. So really for me, just the continuous learning was just so helpful in getting me kind of back on track, getting out there in nature, and really prioritizing sleep and hydration. Yeah. Things that I knew instinctively, but I never actually prioritized them because I didn't really understand. Yeah. And writing books like Casey Means' book, oh gosh, what is it called? I forget. Oh my gosh. Her book, but then we also have the longevity book, that was what, Outlive. Books like that. Anything. Books about things that are about, like, how we can improve our own lives and how we can improve the lives of others. Yeah. That really did it for me.
I love that because I really feel like, now as you're talking, like, a lot about, being grounded in nature, and, you wanted so much more information, right? Like, you're hungry for information, which I love because that creates that well-roundedness in you. But, one of the things that you might want to look into is, like, sound therapy, like frequency work, because for myself, even, I am very, like, sound penetrates my system. It's when I first did, like, a sound bath, I remember feeling like, whoa, I could feel it, like, in every, like, cell of my body. And that's how music is with me. Like, we have to start to really think about the things that are around us in our environment and how much effect it has on us, because it does have a lot of effect on us. And so, it's really interesting to hear how you've used these things and said, listen, like, these are the things that I love, and how can I come back to them? Because in your role, it was almost like you gave up all the things that you loved because that's what you thought it needed, or you needed, in order to be successful at what you were doing.
Absolutely. So, yeah, and I mean, honestly, I just really like who I am now, right? And and I mean, and it's such an important part of things, right? So that, like, I now feel like, I don't know, I don't know how to explain it to someone who hasn't, like, kind of gone through it, and I don't want to say that it is a transcendent, like, I've gone through some transcendental experience, but it kind of feels like that. It's hard to put some other word on it, but, like, I am so much more connected to myself, and that helps me connect to others.
Yeah, it is so true. I had a friend who had lung cancer, and she made it through it. And I always say to her, like, you've been given another chance. Like, this is your chance to do it for you. This is your chance to, like, really get to know who you are, all the things, And so just understanding that it's like a rebirth of you, because that is the old version of you that was being someone for everyone else and doing all the things for everyone else. And It's honestly, until we learn to put the mask on ourselves first, we cannot give to other people without sacrificing ourselves. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. So tell
Yeah,
everyone a little bit about your business and how you're helping through the organizations.
sure. Yeah, well, I am kind of, one of the big books that like was really struck to my core was Start with Why, Simon Sinek, right? Um, and after reading that book and pretty much all the rest of his books, but after reading that book, I really started to do that deep dive of like, well, what is my why? Because the kind of the premise is if you kind of figure out what your why is, as long as you're able to function in that why, you can pretty much be in any role, right? And so when I really took the time to figure it out over and over again, and your why has been your why your whole life, basically, I looked back from when I was a child all the way till, now. It's always been my greatest joys have always come from helping others succeed, right? Their successes have always been the ones that have brought me the most joy, whether it was the kids getting into the schools that they wanted to get into, or the kids, nailing that monologue, or doing a great job, on some kind of other essay, or whether it was just even I think back to elementary school when like I would help my friends like navigate a conflict and they got, they were friends again or things like that. It was always about helping others thrive. Yeah. And so for me, that's kind of what led me to realize like I need to do something that allows me to do that. And I'd always kind of done coaching anyway. When I left the organization, unfortunately, about, I want to say 9 months after I left, maybe a little bit less than that, they decided to close the daytime division, the private school division. And that was really devastating. The grief that, and I got a lot of phone calls and a lot of people reaching out and being like, wanting to talk about it, but also wanting to figure out what was next for them. Yeah. And so of course that involved a lot of coaching on my part, right? But I'd also been doing coaching anyway for the kids, in their college stuff. And then I had all my college kids who were alum, who were out in the world doing things, and I mean all over the world doing things, still reaching out to me to talk to me and be like, Miss C, can we talk? Miss C, can we talk? And realizing that like I couldn't help them all at once, but I could on platforms that were a little bit more vocal. And so I had thought about having my own company, but I didn't like really commit to it. But at first I was like, I'm just going to jump on like social media or something one day, but I hate social media, like hate it. Right. And so it like turned my stomach, but I was like, one day I'm going to. So I just reserved that Instagram handle, Collier Connects. Right? Because I thought I'm just going to reconnect with everybody and like be there to support them and help them out and like give them their little words of wisdom that they were always looking for from me. Right. And then eventually, some reached out because they wanted me to work with their kid on this or that. And then like eventually one of them just sent me this note that was so incredible and so like, you made the difference. And it was like the one little thing I needed that pushed me over the edge to be like, yeah, I'm doing this. And that parent actually connected me with a coach they had hired for their other kid. And I met with her, and like a couple weeks after I met with this woman, she was like, hey, you want your first client? And it just kind of started to roll from there. And it was kind of amazing. But so what I do is it's not on purpose, but the majority of my clients are neurodivergent. I think that we just click because they feel very seen by me. But I work coaching with clients to help them reach their personal and professional development goals. Some of them, it's whether they're trying to get into graduate school or whether they are, trying to figure out what's next for them in their career, or if they're supervisors and they're trying to figure out how to lead their teams better, things like that. So very much geared in like pulling in all of those resources, all that reading, all that learning, and helping them with that. And then, like I said, developing programs for organizations to kind of implement and hopefully pull in some formalized mentorship and coaching into their companies so that they can help others thrive within their organizations. To me, if you can create better leaders, then you have better, happier employees, right? Who then go home to be better, happier parents, spouses, etc. It trickles down. Everybody is better, but the companies have to invest in their employees.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they are like starting to do it slowly with wellness. That's how they're starting to get in, but it needs to be bigger and more robust than that. And I really think that you and I have highlighted that. So tell anyone that's been on the podcast how they can get in touch with you.
Oh, sure. So my Instagram handle is michelle.anderson.collier. And my website is collierconnects.com. And that's probably the best of the two ways to reach me is those two ways. Yep. And I would love to connect, even if not, and LinkedIn. Oh, I'm on LinkedIn too. LinkedIn is a great place to connect also. I'm always open for the virtual chats.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm surprised that you finally paved and had an Instagram account, so that's amazing.
I do. Oh, wait. Is that my Instagram handle? Yes, that is. I also have the business one too, the Collier Connects. But to be honest, I don't use that one that much after all that.
It's Michelle.
Anderson.collier. Yeah, and I think I gave you a little link. So
well, we're so grateful that you were on today, and thank you so much for sharing your story and also so much inspiration for the high achieving woman to just recognize that, sometimes the trajectory that we see other people on can be really reflective for us on where we're headed, and we're just really grateful that you came in and shared some of your knowledge and wisdom with us. So thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.